Hello everyone. Today I'm going to take up the third level by Jack Finney from 12th standard from Vista. Before I start, I would like all of you to like and subscribe my channel English and Science Zone for more upcoming videos of all the classes from 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th standard in English and the audiovisual lessons which I have made in English for all of you for easy and effective understanding. Please hit the bell icon to see all my upcoming videos. Thanks a lot, all of you. Jack Finney presents a curious experience in the story The Third Level. A psychologist may interpret the third level as a medium of escape for a person. Charlie, the protagonist, moves from present to the past with the help of the third level. His interest in philately helps keep the past alive and resolve the intricacies caused by the interweaving of fantasy and reality. The presidents of the New York Central and the New York, New Haven and Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only two, but I say there are three because I have been on the third level of the Grand Central Station. Yes, I have taken the obvious step. I talked to a psychiatrist friend of mine, among others. I told him about the third level at Grand Central Station, and he said it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. He said I was unhappy. That made my wife kind of mad, but he explained that he meant the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, and all the rest of it, and that I just want to escape. Well, who doesn't? Everybody I know wants to escape, but they don't wander down into any third level at Grand Central Station. He goes to Grand Central Station and he says that there are only two levels on the station. But according to Charlie, there are three levels on the station because he has found a third level, and it was like a waking dream for him. When he went to his friend Sam, the psychiatrist, he told him might be it was because he had this fantasy in his mind that he was full of insecurity and he was full of stress. So he had woven a fantasy in his mind regarding the third level at Grand Central Station. But that's the reason, he said, and my friends all agreed. Everything points to it. They claimed my stamp collecting, for example, that's a temporary refuge from reality. Well, maybe, but my grandfather didn't need any refuge from reality. Things were pretty nice and peaceful. So Charlie says, if you think that I'm collecting stamps or philately has been my hobby from a long time because I'm stressed out, because I have worries, it's not so, because my grandfather also loved collecting stamps, and in his days there was no stress and no worries at all. So that's what Charlie says to Sam. From all I hear, and he started my collection. It's a nice collection too. Blocks of four of practically every US issue, first day covers, and so on. President Roosevelt collected stamps too, you know. So Charlie justifies that stamp collection is not a way to escape from reality. Even President Roosevelt collected stamps and he was not stressed out. He collected it out of for his hobby. Anyway, here's what happened at Grand Central. One night last summer, I worked late at the office. I was in a hurry to get uptown to my apartment. So I decided to take the subway from Grand Central because it's faster than the bus. So Charlie says that one night what happened, he was working very late and he was in his office for a long time and he was hurrying back to get back to his house. He wanted to go back home. So he took the Grand Central subway because it's faster than the bus. So now what happened? Now I don't know why this should have happened to me. I'm just an ordinary guy named Charlie, 31 years old. I was wearing a tan gabardine suit with a straw hat with a fancy band. I passed a dozen men who looked just like me, and I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I just wanted to get home to Louisa, my wife. So he says, I went to the Grand Central Station, and what I found there were people all over like me. Now I'm a 31-year-old guy, and I was wearing a suit and a straw hat, and I passed many people just looking like me. I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I wanted to go home to my wife. That's what he justified. I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level where you take trains like the 20th century. Then I walked down another flight to the second level where the suburban trains leave from, ducked into an arched doorway heading for the subway and got lost. That's easy to do. I've been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times, but I'm always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. Once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came out in the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel. Another time I came up in an office building on 46th Street, 3 blocks away. What Charlie says over here, he says that every time he goes to Grand Central, and what happens is he has to walk down the first level to take trains like the 20th century, and then he has to walk another flight of stairs to reach the suburban trains, and from there he has to go to an arched doorway. From there he gets his train actually, and he's done it hundreds of times. But what happens is every time he bumps into new doorways or new corridors or new staircases, and after going through a tunnel he realizes that he has come out into different places, like the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel, the office building on the 46th Street. And sometimes he thinks that Grand Central is growing like a tree and it's pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots. He doesn't know what's going on at Grand Central. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about, feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square and maybe another to Central Park. Through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into. But I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. So what Charlie says, he says, might be there's a very long tunnel under the Grand Central, and the tunnel leads to many places like the Times Square, the Central Park and what not. And for ages he feels Grand Central has been an exit actually for people who want to escape from the reality of things. But now, when he had gone to his psychiatrist and when he was saying all such things, he did not tell him about the escape idea at all, because he knew that Sam would catch up that idea and he would tell him that he was living a life of fantasy. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that was wrong, but I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footsteps, and I didn't pass a soul. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead. That means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the third level at Grand Central Station. So what happened now? He started walking in a corridor, and the corridor was going on angling towards the left and slanting downwards. And when he was walking, he knew something was wrong because he's never seen that corridor before in his life. But he went on walking. There was nobody in the corridor excepting he himself, and even he could hear the sound of its footsteps. But still he went on walking, and at last when the tunnel opened up, you can hear the people outside the tunnel actually. So he heard them, and the tunnel came to a sharp left, and he walked down a short flight of stairs, and at last he came to the third level at Grand Central Station. Actually, at Grand Central Station there are only 2 levels, but this was another level which Charlie had come up to. For just a moment I thought I was back on the second level, but I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking, and the man in the booth wore a green eye shade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why. They were open flame gas lights. So after a while, what did Charlie see? When he came out from the tunnel, he found that he had come to a strange station altogether. There were fewer rooms over there were fewer ticket windows over there, and there were fewer train gates. The information booth was made up of wood and was very old looking. The man in the booth also was wearing old fashioned clothes, the ones which they wore in the 1800s. He had a green eye shade and he had long sleeve protectors. And the lights were actually not real lights, they were the open flame gas lights which were used long back, might be in the 18th century. Let's see what else he saw. There were brass spittoons on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch, and frowned. He wore a derby hat, a black 4-button suit with tiny lapels, and he had a big black handlebar mustache. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. I never saw so many beards, sideburns, and fancy mustaches in my life. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high buttoned shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive, a very small courier, an Ivis locomotive with a funnel shaped stack. And then I knew. So, what happened here? As soon as he looked around, he saw brass spittoons and people wearing old fashioned clothes, having old fashioned watches and old fashioned suits. There was a lady there, she was wearing this old fashioned dress. He couldn't believe what was happening over there. Things present over there were reminding him of the centuries which were in the early 19th century or the last of the 18th century. And suddenly he knew what was happening. To make sure, I walked over to the newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers at his feet. It was The World, and The World hadn't been published for years. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. I have found that front page since in the public library files, and it was printed on June 11th, 1894. So now what happened? So he was sure that he has come to a different century altogether. Now he wanted to be sure whether it's correct or not. So he went to a newspaper boy who was selling newspapers over there. And he saw that the newspaper which was printed and at the feet of the boy, the name of the newspaper was The World. The publishing of the paper had been stopped for quite some time. And the story on the front page said something about President Cleveland. And he remembered when he had checked the files in the public library, he had found that that paper was printed on June 11th, 1894. Now, I turned towards the ticket windows, knowing that here on the third level at Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go in the year 1894. And I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. Have you ever been there? It's a wonderful town still, with big old frame houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof the streets. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long, and people sat out on the lawns, the men smoking cigars and talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans with the fireflies all around, in a peaceful world. To be back there with the First World War still 20 years off and World War II over 40 years in the future. I wanted 2 tickets for that. So he says he came to know that he had already come into another century. So he went to the ticket window and tried to find out whether he could buy tickets over there to Galesburg and Illinois. And because that was a town where he lived when he was a young boy, and he remembered the houses over there were really big houses, and they had this huge lawns and big trees and all that. And he remembered the people during the summer evenings, they used to sit out and have a lot of fun. The men smoked cigars and the women sat there, and they were all around, there were fireflies. Till that time First World War had not taken place, and the Second World War was above 40 years, and now he wanted two tickets for that, and he was sure that he was in another century altogether, and he wanted to go and experience his boyhood again. The clerk figured the fare. He glanced at my fancy hat band, but he figured the fare, and I had enough for two coach tickets one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. He nodded at the bills. "That ain't money, mister," he said, "and if you're trying to skin me, you won't get very far." And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him. Of course, the money was old style bills, half again as big as the money we use nowadays, and different looking. I turned away and got out fast. There's nothing nice about jail, even in 1894. So he went to buy the tickets, and the clerk at the tickets counter told him the fare. And when he took out the money and he gave it to him, he realized the money which he had given to the clerk was the money of today. And the clerk, when he looked at the money, he got very angry because he thought the money Charlie was giving him was all fake money, and he wanted to put Charlie into the jail, and because he was having such kind of money which was not existing at that period of time. The money at that time had were like big notes, and now the note size was really small. And now Charlie decided best thing is to get out of here. It's not good to stay even in 1894 in the jail. So he just ran away from there. And that was that. I left the same way I came, I suppose. Next day, during lunch hour, I drew $300 out of the bank, nearly all we had, and bought old style currency. That's really worried my psychiatrist friend. You can buy old money at almost any coin dealers, but you have to pay a premium. My $300 bought less than 200 in old style bills, but I didn't care. Eggs were 13 cents a dozen in 1894. So now he wanted to go back to 1894, and he wanted the old money. So we can exchange our money in coin dealer shops where they can give us the old style money, but always it's very expensive. So he had $300 around in his bank account. He took them all out during the lunch hour, and he went to the old coin store, and over there he changed his money from the new money to the old money, and he got less than $200 in the old style bills. But he was not bothered because he knew that in 1894 even $200 was a very, very big amount, and he could easily live a very satisfied and luxurious life with that kind of money. But I've never again found the corridor that leads to the third level at Grand Central Station, although I have tried often enough. Louisa was pretty worried when I told her all this, and didn't want me to look for the third level anymore. And after a while I stopped. I went back to my stamps, but now we were both looking every weekend, because now we have proof that the third level is still there. My friend Sam Wiener disappeared. Nobody knew where, but I sort of suspected, because Sam's a city boy, and I used to tell him about Galsburg. I went to school there, and he always said he liked the sound of the place, and that's where he is. All right, in 1894, what happened now? Charlie went on searching for the third level, but he never found it. And his wife Louisa was very angry and worried about all these things. So she told him, please stop looking for the third level and go back to your stamp collection hobby. So he did that. But one fine day, both of them went to the station and started looking for the third level, because now they had some proof that the third level was there. Because what had happened? His friend, the psychiatrist, Sam, had just disappeared suddenly, and he knew that Sam might have found the third level and must have gone there, because whenever he went to Sam, he told him his stories when he was a small boy, how he studied at the place called Galsburg, and how he went to school over there, and it was a really nice place. But Sam had never lived in a village or a town. He was always a city boy, and he really loved to go to the place where Charlie had been there as a kid. So now Sam could not be found, and nobody knew where Sam had gone. So they suspected Louisa and Charlie that might be Sam has found the third level. Because one night, fussing with my stamp collection, I found, well, do you know what a first day cover is? When a stamp is issued, stamp collectors buy some and use them to mail envelopes to themselves on the very first day of sale, and the postmark proves the date. The envelope is called a first day cover. They're never opened. You just put blank paper in the envelope. That night, among my oldest first day covers, I found one that shouldn't have been there. But there it was. It was there because someone had mailed it to my grandfather at his home in Galsburg. That's what the address on the envelope said, and it had been there since July 18th, 1894. The postmark showed that, yet I didn't remember it at all. The stamp was a 6 cent dull brown with a picture of President Garfield. Naturally, when the envelope came to Grandad in the mail, it went right into his collection and stayed there till I took it out and opened it. The paper inside wasn't blank, it read. So, what happened now? One fine day, as you see, the stamp collectors, what they do, whenever a new stamp is issued, they buy it on the same day and they put it on an envelope and they mail it to themselves. Because when they mail it to themselves, the postman puts the postmark over the stamp, and so these type of envelopes are called as first day covers. They're never opened because there's no letter inside it. There are just blank papers in the envelope, and people collect them, and they are called as first day covers. So one day when Charlie was looking at all the oldest first day covers, he suddenly found one cover which was not there before, but suddenly it was there now in his grandfather's collection, and the date on the stamp said July 18th, 1894. The postmark showed it all, and he remembers that he never saw this cover any time before. The stamp was a 6 cent stamp on the cover, and suddenly he thought that who's this? Who's written this letter to my grandfather? Let me open it today and see what's there inside. And usually the first day covers have all blank papers inside them. But when Charlie opened the cover, the paper was not blank inside. There was something there inside. And what was there? There was a letter. What happened? Let's see. It read 941 Willard Street, Galesburg, Illinois, July 18th, 1894. Charlie, I got to wishing that you were right. Then I got to believing you were right. And Charlie, it's true. I found the third level. I have been here 2 weeks. And right now, down the street at the Dailies, someone is playing a piano. And they're all out on the front porch singing Sing Nellie Home. Sing Nellie Home is an American song and it was published in the 1850s. And I'm invited over for lemonade. Come on back, Charlie and Louisa. Keep looking till you find the third level. It's worth it, believe me. The note is signed Sam. So such a surprise. There was a letter there and it was by Sam and it was to Charlie, not his granddad. In that letter, Sam had written that he had found the third level and he said, Charlie, what you told me was all true and I've come to 1894 and I'm enjoying over here. Someone is calling me for lemonade and someone is playing the piano and it's so wonderful. So you and Louisa keep searching for the third level and please come over here and you'll have the best time in your life. And this was such a letter, and now it was understood that Sam had found the third level. Just to justify, to find out if this was true or not, Charlie ran to the stamp and coin store. At the stamp and coin store I go to, I found that Sam bought $800 worth of old style currency that ought to set him up in a nice little hay, feed and grain business. He always said that's what he really wished he could do. And he certainly can't go back to his old business. Not in Galesburg, Illinois, in 1894. His old business. Why? Sam was my psychiatrist. So, when to find out the reality of the letter, Charlie went to his old coin dealer, the stamp and coin dealer, and he found out that Sam had bought $800 worth of old style currency. So it was understood that Sam had found the third level, and he thought that psychiatrists were not at all common in the year 1894. So Sam could not be a psychiatrist anymore over there. So he had to do some other business, and this money which Sam had with him would easily get him a proper hay, feed, and grain business. And he could do that business if he wanted to do that. And Sam was enjoying himself over there because he had never been to Galesburg, and now he was in the old town and he loved it. And Charlie thinks that Sam could never be a psychiatrist over there, so he had to take up some other business. And that's all about this lesson full of fantasy, which is blocking the reality and shows that it can be an escape mechanism for people who want to escape from reality and go to the third level. Thank you, all of you. Bye bye.